Hi, everybody. Good after just basically afternoon. Thank you for spending your Thursday lunch break with us. This is, I think, our fifth webinar of this academic year. We're going to be focusing on the dining services at New Brunswick. This is being hosted by the Office of Climate Action, and we are so grateful that we've got the people here that are going to be speaking with us. Today's session is going to be moderated by Fazali. He is an undergraduate student in the School of Engineering. He's also the chair of the University Affairs Committee for RUSA, and we are very grateful that he is a member of the Student Advisory Board for our office. So Faiz, take it away.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I am pleased to welcome today's presenters, Tom, Lott, and Marina Vineis. Tom is a co-chair of the Dining Services and Food Vendors CAG and the Assistant Food Buyer for Dining Services in Rutgers New Brunswick. Marina is the Nutrition Specialist for Dining Services in Rutgers New Brunswick. Today's webinar will feature a brief presentation from Tom and Marina on sustainability in Rutgers New Brunswick Dining Services, followed by a question and answer session. Please note that the webinar is being recorded and it will be added to the OCA YouTube channel and newsletter for anyone who couldn't join live. If you do not wish to be recorded, please feel free to stay off camera and share questions and comments using the chat. Now I will turn it over to Tom and Marina.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm Tom Lott. I'm the co-chair of the Food and it's a long one, Dining Services and Food Vendors Climate Action Group. Marina is here. She's a nutritionist with Dining Services as well. I'm gonna bring up a PowerPoint here. So the mission and scope that the Climate Action Plan put together in June of 21 for the dining portion is that Dining Services and the Food Vendors Climate Action Group will measure and reduce all food and drink related Scope 3 emissions associated with procurement and waste. The Scope 3 emissions are those that are beyond Rutgers control, such as purchasing and supply chain, GHGs. Analyzing these will let us know the areas to focus our efforts. Developing a data collection system methodology that will allow for comprehensive and consistent reporting of Scope 3 emissions associated with these food systems. Our collective goal, in line with keeping global warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius, Rutgers Dining commits to the goal of reducing GHG emissions associated with food by 25% by 2030. Some of the data collection methods that we use to get the baselines for this are ASHE, that's ASHE STARS program. This program allows us to track plant-based and third-party certified products that meet sustainability. The MCURC, this is the research arm of Menus of Change initiative. We have a baseline going back to 2018. The Menus of Change University Research Collaborative we're one of several schools across the country that take part, and the goals there are to kind of promote a more plant forward and climate friendly menu. SciMap, many of us are familiar with already. It's the university's chosen system for monitoring our GHG emissions. When the original Climate Action Plan was brought about, some of the recommendations from that initial plan included menus changed to include a plant-forward diet, adopting a climate-friendly food labeling system, and increased use of reusable water bottles and hydration stations, continuing to support locally sourced fresh products, and exploring digesters and compostables. More on those as you'll see. Many of these initiatives have begun, as you'll see in the following slides. So Menus of Change focuses on a plant-forward, minimally processed foods for a more nutritious and sustainable focus. Plants, as you will see, produce far less GHGs than animal products. Dining was actually one of the original members of the Menus of Change program and their research arm, MCURC. We have identified several areas to focus on. Regarding education and communication will absolutely guide getting everyone on board with seeing what our patrons can do and getting them in the right direction. Some examples are on here. Dairy alternatives, rather than having, dairy milk, use soy or almond. Swapping red meats for plant proteins. Fill half your plate with vegetables. Choosing intact grains. Grab a piece of fruit on your way out of the dining hall. And obviously using your reusable water stations. With these goals in mind, the second kind of pointer there was the climate labeling system. Marina will talk about the climate labeling initiative that we're working on now at Dining Services.
Thank you so much, Tom. And hello, everyone. Just to reintroduce myself, my name is Marina. I'm one of the registered dietitians. I work at for Dining Services New Brunswick. And what I want to do today is I'm actually very excited to talk about this new system we have in place, a new initiative, which is our climate labeling and sustainable menu tracking. Tom, you can advance. So when looking at our menus, we had a few goals in mind when it comes to sustainability. Tom already mentioned our number one goal, which is a collective target to reduce food related greenhouse gas emissions by 25% by 2030. But we also wanted to look at our menus to make sure that we're making the healthier, more sustainable choices, the easier and more prominent choices as well. We want to still offer a really wide range of food to our students, but really highlight those more sustainable options. And then third, we have an initiative where we would like to label our online menus with carbon footprint icons. And this will really tie in the education piece for our students to help let them make more informed, sustainable choices with their food. Next slide. So we set out a few guidelines for ourselves. The one we will talk about mainly today is that we aim to have at least 50% of our entrees being plant-based with plant-based proteins, or qualifying as a low carbon footprint item, which I'll talk about what that means in a minute. In order to increase this number, we hope that that will also make a cultural norm in the dining hall, seeing more of these plant-based entrees, at least 50% of them. And that will help hopefully encourage students to make better food choices as well. Next slide. So I'm sure that everyone on the call has seen this information in one way, in some form or another, but let's just go over it really briefly. So of course we know that the food, mainly protein options as well, can contribute, the food we eat, it really contributes to our sustainability as far as greenhouse gas emissions associated with our food. So if we look at this chart here from the Planetary Health Diet, we can see different food categories and each food's associated greenhouse gas emission per gram and ounce. But we can also further categorize these foods into dietary carbon footprints. We can categorize it into low, medium, and high, and this is what this chart is showing. So if we go through really briefly, the green area, which is our low dietary carbon footprint emitters, we mainly see our plant-based proteins here, other plant-based items, small amounts of certified sustainable fish, and also small amounts of dairy and eggs. In our medium category, we can group in chicken here, poultry, pork, and shrimp. And then when we look at the high contributors, we're going to, of course, see ruminant animals like beef and lamb and higher amounts of cheese. New slide. So using this information and information from other universities, what we did was create a climate labeling and tracking criteria that could then be applied to the four main menus that we use in our 4 dining halls. So in this criteria, we assigned each main entree of these menus either as a low, medium, or high carbon footprint item, using a lot of the same categories that you saw on the graph before. New slide. We also developed some preliminary icons that can be associated with these categories. For example, if an entree was a, let's say, a vegan option, it on the online menu would have a low carbon footprint in green next to it. So we hope to use these carbon footprint icons again to be placed onto our online menu to help students make educated choices about the sustainability of each of these entrees that they're looking at. New slide. Also, just to give you a little background of some of the research and what some other universities have found, I like to reference the recently published UCLA study, where they saw a 54% increase in sales of low carbon footprint menu items after they introduced these carbon labeling icons to their online menu and initiated a social marketing campaign to educate students, which involved posters and signage on their website and in their dining halls. Again, they saw that 54% increase in sales for those low carbon footprint items, which they equated to an impact of a decrease of approximately 16.4 metric tons of CO2, which is the equivalent of driving about 11 times across the US. So we see that making these small menu changes, incorporating education into the mix with our students as well, can have some pretty big impacts. So we hope to see similar impacts on our campus and our dining halls as well. New slide. So how do we stack up? What we did was we used the criteria that we developed and applied that to all 4 of our campus dining hall menus. We did this for the menu cycle of spring 2022. And we're going to take a look at some of those results of how we, the data compared to some of the goals that we set out for ourselves. Thank you, Tom. So what we're looking at here, just to explain, these are overall results. We have 4 major dining halls, 1 on each campus in New Brunswick, Piscataway area, and each one has a 28-day cycle menu. So we looked at all 4 of those cycle menus and coded each entree as either being a low, medium, or high carbon footprint item. What we're seeing here is that we actually just barely made that goal of that 50% of our entrees were categorized as low carbon footprint items. Around 30% on average, again, across all 4 dining halls, were categorized as medium carbon footprint and around 13 as high. However, when we do a little bit of a deeper dive into the data, especially if we separate it out into meal periods, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it tells a little bit of a different story. Next slide. We can see if we only break down breakfast across all 4 dining halls, that we actually exceed our goal with 76% low carbon footprint items and 0% high carbon footprint items. However, if we look at lunch and dinner on the next slide, it tells a bit of a different story and gives us some area for improvement. So we see that we fell short of our 50% goal in low carbon footprint items with only meeting 39% of our entrees. And you can see that the medium and high carbon footprint entrees increase. So those are higher volumes than breakfast and than the overall numbers. If we look at dinner on the next slide, you'll see a very similar makeup, almost the same numbers actually. We're still falling short of our low carbon footprint goal, and we're still seeing higher numbers in the medium and high carbon footprint areas. Next slide. So what did this tell us? We definitely need to start increasing the percentage of low carbon footprint entrees for lunch and dinner in particular, if we want to start reaching towards and meeting that 50% goal. Next slide. So there's a few strategies to come closer towards that goal. One of them is, of course, increasing plant-based protein that we're serving as our entrees in lunch and dinner periods, and also increasing those low carbon footprint items. But we can also work to reduce the medium and high carbon footprint items served as well. Next slide. So what we did was we met with the unit managers and chefs from each of the dining halls and gave them some menu suggestions so that we can start moving towards that goal. And I'm just going to share a few of these with you today. Some of the suggestions that we made included reducing serving sizes of animal-based meat, such as fish, to 4 ounces. We also talked about reducing cheese, in particular in mixed pasta dishes. For example, we found that baked macaroni and cheese, which is a student fan favorite, was consistently coming up as a red item, a high carbon footprint item. So we talked to the chefs and came up with a solution for adding blended vegetables to the cheese sauce in a 50-50% ratio, not only to reduce the amount of cheese that we're using to make it a more sustainable item, but also this adds back in some nutrients and makes it a little bit more of a nutritious meal as well. Next slide. We also really wanted to focus on those high carbon footprint items, which on our menus really translated to beef offerings. So how can we help reduce those? We had a few suggestions for our chefs, which included switching 100% beef patties over to a blended patty with either beans or mushroom, removing old-fashioned or unpopular items that contained beef from the menu, and also removing beef from soups because it's a really easy way to replace with another protein. And then also we asked our chefs to take a look at all of the items that were coded red on their menus and just check if there's any other changes we can do to make them more sustainable. New slide. So what we did for our baseline, we expect to continue to this monitoring and tracking system each semester. So we have our baseline data, which we shared with you today. And I'm happy to say that a lot of the changes that I mentioned here, I have seen being reflected in the fall 22 menus. So I'm really hopeful. We're at the tail end of analyzing that data. I'm really hopeful that we do see a lot of those positive changes being made, and then that influences our numbers. And we'll continue to analyze the data each semester. Phase 2 of the project would be to add those carbon footprint icons, which I showed you a few slides ago, to our online menus and really tie in the full impact with educating our students as well in making those choices. And that is about all I have for you today. So I'm going to pass it back over to Tom.
Okay, great. Thanks, Marina. Now we're going to look at go back a little bit and look at some of the things that dining has been doing sustainably for quite a while. Dining employs multiple sustainability practices within its food service operations and dining spaces. This has been the practice for decades. The next slides will take you through our climate-friendly practices, many of which began before the Climate Task Force. So here we have pictures. For a very long time, going back about 3 generations, we had a pig farmer come to the campuses, and they would pick up all of the food waste that we had on campus in all the dining halls. Now, what you see here in the pictures, the food would come in on dish belts into the dish rooms, and we would separate out the plates and silverware and food product. That food product would go into a trough with water and get ground up. And then it would actually come over here, get ground up some more, and the water would be pressed out of it, and that would go into these barrels. And what you see here is what was left of that food ground up. Now we would store that in cold storage, and the farmer would come and pick up these barrels daily, and then take it back to his farm and use for animal feed for his livestock. The farmer has since retired, which kind of made dining look into other avenues of diverting our waste from landfills. So what we have now, we have 8 bio-high-tech Sprout food waste digesters in the 4 dining halls and Henry's Diner. Food waste is broken down by enzymes, converted into environmentally friendly liquid waste, and it safely enters the sewer system. The digesters still capture most of the waste from the 4 dining halls and Henry's. One of the benefits to the digestion is that it occurs on campus and on site. So it literally just is digested and goes into the sewer system. And there have been benefits to the sewer system in New Brunswick and Piscataway. In addition, the transportation that we're no longer doing to get the food from us to the pig farm, those GHGs are no longer necessary since there's no transportation involved. These are a few pictures of the digesters. Our production managers are constantly monitoring what goes into these digesters, and that in conjunction with the service records that we get during every meal. There is information provided by the cooks and the frontline servers that show our production managers what is left over at the end of a meal. From that information and what they see going into the digesters, they can then make adjustments to the orders so that the next time that menu comes up, we will process less waste than we did the time before, since we have a better idea of how much to order. Another program that we have is the reusable bag and bottle program. Every student with a meal plan receives a reusable bag and bottle courtesy of Rutgers Dining. Since 2017, over 2.5 million cups, straws, and lids have been saved from going into landfills. And switching from reusable bags on average saves about 300,000 bags per semester from going into the landfill. This program actually came from a collaboration with the RU Student Assembly. Dining and Rooster got together and looked into some different ways that we could work on sustainability, and this is one of the programs that came out of that. LED light bulbs, we started switching over about 5 years ago. We stopped buying our incandescent light bulbs and now use LED. They are much more energy efficient, lots of times reducing energy by more than 80%. This reduces the electricity need, which reduces the power plant emissions. They also have a longer lifespan, and thus they are producing less waste, and we're conserving our resources. We went trayless in 2014, and dining services experienced a 22% reduction in food waste within the dining halls. Currently, all 4 dining halls are trayless. In addition, Rutgers Dining works with vendors to minimize packaging waste and recycles cardboard associated with packaging. Lots of time, the buyer's office, if we go to a food show or somewhere and we see something that could work in the dining halls and it would be a good offer, we'll work with the vendors to kind of see if it's in small retail packaging that uses a lot of plastic and a lot of cardboard, see if we can get it in bulk so that there's not as much plastic to throw away. We have a food recovery program. Dining works with and supports several local community programs both on and off campus. So when there are extra portions left over, our managers collect and provide these portions and recognize the agencies that this can go to. Another program, and this is just starting this semester, Dining will be partnering with Restaurant Technologies to install a closed loop automated oil management system in 2 of our facilities. The benefits include, among several, the reduction of landfill waste by discontinuing the need for 35-pound plastic containers of fryer oil. The recycled oil will be turned into biodiesel by Restaurant Technologies. Dining, this will be the first semester that we are using them. Our Newark and Camden campuses use Restaurant Technologies already. And in 2018, Restaurant Technologies as a whole, their automated systems helped eliminate more than 13.6 million plastic jugs from going into landfills. We also are excited about a new initiative. We're working with the RU Eco Complex. We have in 2022, there was a grant. Dr. Serpil Garan is working on this. It's an innovative food waste reutilization at Rutgers. I'm not sure if Dr. Garan is on here or not.
I'm here, Tom.
Hi.
If you wish. Yeah.
Would you like to talk about it?
If that's okay, yes, please.
Sure.
And hi, everyone. And so I'm gonna take over. And if you would advance the slides later, but I may ask you. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
go back to first slide back again, if you don't mind, please. Just
Sure.
wait. Yeah. Yes, as you can see, hello, everyone. As you can see, it's a mouthful title. Innovative food waste reutilization at Rutgers to support soil health and climate change mitigation. It is very important to find always better solutions. What Rutgers has been doing is great, but how can we improve Rutgers operations to achieve more carbon savings, right? And also overall sustainability. There are names that you all are familiar. And next slide, please. And so we have also industry collaborators. Basically, what we will be doing is collecting Nielsen Dining Hall cafeteria waste. It's going to be kitchen waste, but also scrapes after students, eat their lunch or dinner, whatever. And then we will be collecting them and separately, not anything else in those, only food waste. And then collecting with these. And the next slide, please, Tom. Yeah. And next week, in fact, the equipment already the stall tipper has arrived to Animal Farm. But the electric vehicle that you can see, just the example of the picture, will arrive to our Rutgers Cook campus. Basically, what we're going to do is transport the food waste with this electric vehicle to Rutgers Research Farm. Next slide, please. And then basically using that tool tipper, Clint Berger's team, and we'll be loading. And so this composter, it's sort of, composting technology is not a new technology, as you know, but this is like in-vessel composting. It's not going to, hopefully, not going to create environmental problems. As you know, we are in the campus setting, and so that is why we have to be very careful. But it's going to be a very interesting project. Hopefully, it's the first step for creating food waste reutilization living laboratory also. So basically, yes, we will be composting, load the waste, discharge the compost, and then we will be utilizing, testing this. Next slide, please, Tom. Yeah, and a little bit details. So what's going to happen? Yep, we will be demonstrating the composting, how to compost food waste coming from one cafeteria at the animal farm. And so, but also we are going to have several scenarios, because just composting, it's great because we will be doing this but also this is a research project, mind you. And so we will be testing several scenarios. One of them is this direct composting of food waste, but also there is a big phenomenon out there that compostables, biodegradables, are they really delivering what they're promising? So we will be also especially testing the compostability of compostables, but also biodegradable plastics. So we will see, and it's going to be a part of our research project. Also, composting, I didn't want to create a seminar of this, although it's a webinar, it's a sort of seminar, but I didn't want to take too much of your time. As you know, what we are doing currently, Tom already mentioned that, we are macerating the food waste, right, in those aerobic digesters, and we are sending down to drain, and it's ending up in the wastewater treatment facilities. So what happens? In the wastewater treatment facilities, it goes into, if they have an anaerobic digester, hopefully they have, where Rutgers is sending its wastewater, they're doing anaerobic digestion. However, they're mixing with residential waste, basically, and the residential waste has a lot of pharmaceuticals in it and other heavy metals in it. So they can capture the gas as much as they can. Yep, they're not going to emit to the atmosphere as bad as landfills, but that they are not going to recover the nutrients within food waste, because it's already mixed with human waste, residential waste. I don't want to sound gross, right? So that's why our goal is saving carbons, right? And so that is why we are promoting other technologies. When it comes to composting, it's much better, because what we're going to do is capturing the nutrients, but also these nutrients can stay with the food waste, but also carbons can stay. So carbons can be returned back to the soil. But this is a great approach, only composting, if we are electricity and heat reasons, if we are fully renewable energy. But meanwhile, what we're doing is currently, we keep burning frac natural gas, which is a fossil fuel, right? And then we are getting our carbons back into the soil. At the end, you can do a little bit of a calculations, yes, but we're saying this, why don't we create another technology, which is anaerobic digestion. They can capture the gas, generate for power, or they can also, put into pipeline gas as a pipeline gas, renewable natural gas, to display fossil fuel, fossil natural gas, frac natural gas, but then they can still capture the nutrients. So the next scenario, we will be getting a solid fraction of anaerobic digestions, how we can compost it. Because in this case, anaerobic digestion technology and composting technology, they wouldn't compete for a food waste. They can coexist, basically. So that is why we want to create a scientific data, because we keep talking about, before we suggest to decision makers, including state, and Rutgers decision makers, we're going to see how quickly that solid fraction of anaerobic digestion can be compostable. So this is the science part. And then obviously when we generate the compost, is it a good quality? Dr. Stephanie Murphy is a collaborator. So her lab will be testing every different compost and then see, are we really creating good compost also, acceptable way. And the next step, I should say, environmental, economic, and social analysis that we will be doing. I will be doing the environmental analysis. We in fact started doing the baseline study. Dr. Oberg and her team collaborated with us. And so currently how much food waste is generated a day, given one day at the dining hall. And then one scenario is if everything is ending up in the landfill. And then if a certain percentage is ending up in down the wastewater treatment system. But then what happens if we send everything back to the composter? But then also, what if we send everything to digester? So these are just, scenarios that we are modeling currently. And in fact, and then economic analysis is going to be performed by Professor Gal Hockman and his team, I'm sorry. His student, Meghna Sarma, is doing her, her master's project. And then Dr. Ethan Spulman will be doing the social analysis and how can we influence the habit, good habit. First, reduction of food waste within campus and maybe dorm rooms, but also and how students and staff and faculty will respond to this kind of new thinking, because not every person on the campus may be thinking like us, and so that is why we will be doing some social analysis and how can we do that. And also we have the last thing and education, outreach and training. We're not going to wait until the end, but we already started doing this actually. Campus-wide outreach education program to promote efficient recycling, organics, as I mentioned, it's along with the one item above. But also we're going to create food waste recycling technology seminars, webinars to Rutgers students. And so last Friday, we did a idea creation lab with Alexander Library Hatchery. That was the first step. And so several people attended from this audience. And so, but it's just a start. We will be doing several of them. And thanks, Tom, for giving me a couple of minutes to explain our project.
Sure.
Appreciate
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing. Okay, so now this slide here, that we have this on our website. These are the ways that you all can support, what dining is doing. Obviously, some we hit upon already. Using the reusable bag and bottle program, bringing your own utensils rather than single use, limiting the purchase of single-use plastics, bottled drinks, packaged snacks from vending, etc. One of the biggest ways that we can really support this initiative, and it may be something that's overlooked a lot, is eating inside the dining halls. They were designed to feed larger amounts of people, and we already have everything we need. The food is there. We don't use takeout containers. We don't use throwaway containers. Everything is reusable. Get in the dining halls, visit, with your friends, and that in itself will get us on the right path. As far as future plans for the committee, we looking at all this, we have a lot of things initiated. I think one of our biggest areas right now is communication, outreach, education. We have a lot of good things started. We'd like to expand, the composting where Dr. Guran had students and herself at Nelson Dining Hall measuring how much waste was done there, looking into expanding that to waste tracking audits across all of our locations, so we can really get a handle on what's coming in, what's going out, why is it being wasted. social media. We've done quite a bit. We have a ways to go. So I guess thank you very much. If you have any questions or for more information, you can contact Climate Action.
Thank you so much to the both of you for the amazing presentation. If you have questions, we're about to start the Q&A session, so you can also ask your questions now. But we are going to start with the Q&A session with a couple questions from members of the Office of Climate Action Student Advisory Board. But then after those questions, I do encourage everyone in the audience to share questions and comments. You can either use the chat or raise your hand and ask your question. We will try to take student questions first. And then if you are chosen to ask a question, please try and ask only one at a time until everyone who wants to ask a question has a chance to ask. So I guess we'll start with the first question from the Student Advisory Board for OCA. How has Rutgers been sharing our sustainable dining practices with other universities?
Dining has kind of been on the forefront of sustainability for quite a while. Over the years, we've had many opportunities to share our practices. Several managers and nutritionists have been on the board for Menus of Change, sharing with the other universities there. MCURC, Peggy Policastro was on the committee for that. Going back even in the late 80s and 90s, we had a group of managers that traveled to campuses across the country, kind of bringing our recycling program to them and co-chairing the initial recycling program for NACUFs. We are working with other universities, all the time, sharing what we have, they share with us. We get a good chance to talk to quite a few universities.
Awesome, thank you so much. And then the next question I'm going to ask are, what are some of the barriers to ending Rutgers purchasing of plastic water bottles? Would expanding water filtration stations or offering boxed water be viable alternatives?
Well, we have fountain beverages across all of our locations, retail operations, as well as the dining halls. We have the reusable takeout container or reusable takeout water bottles already. Some of the barriers would include the labor that would be involved to use fountain machines rather than, offering the plastic bottles. As far as the cardboard boxed water, we have seen it. Right now, currently, that wouldn't be a viable option because of the beverage contract we have wouldn't allow that. Students want to have the confidence of knowing their beverages will not spill in their backpacks, which may be simple, but the kids, for all intent and purposes, prefer plastic bottles sometimes over, reusable containers.
Awesome, thank you so much. There is a question in the chat from David, and it is, who deals with sporting events, food and drink service, and what goals are they working towards?
That is Gourmet Dining is a third-party vendor that we use on campus, and we have to get back to you regarding what their initiatives right now are.
Okay, thank you. Again, to the people in the audience, if you have a question, please feel free to either put it in the chat or raise your hand. Unless there is a question, I'll just read another one from the Student Advisory Board. What are the barriers to making the dining halls more like the Harvest Cafe on Cook?
There really aren't barriers necessarily. That location was designed with this, climate sustainability in mind. The folks that go there are looking for that kind of menu. When you go to the other dining halls, the kids that go to the other dining halls may not be looking for the same things as you do at IFNH. That being said, we have something that's very successful at IFNH, we have incorporated a lot of the menu items into other locations. the labor that's involved in IF&H and at harvest it's much more labor intensive to produce those foods than it is to kind of prepare the already, pre-made items that you might find in a dining hall. I mean, really, there's what? Go ahead.
I'd like to add too, just as you're on that topic. I think from the slides that I shared, students can see that we are incorporating more of those concepts, and we have a plan to do so. It's just going to take a little bit more time, and we want to make sure that we're still offering a really wide variety to our students who have all different kinds of dietary needs and preferences. So in that, I think that the concepts of harvest, making food more sustainable and nutritious, we're definitely taking that to the dining halls, and we're starting to increase those menu options that are more sustainable and more plant-based throughout. So there is a plan, it is happening. I think it's just on a slower level and a smaller level so that students still have, again, an abundance of choice.
I think that ties into our, a lot of it may just be the education and the communication of what we're able to offer everywhere. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then the final question that we have from the Student Advisory Board is, could Rutgers Catering offer a sustainability package for events that includes compostable plates and utensils, no water bottles, climate-friendly food choices, etc.?
Rutgers Catering right now can offer those things on a case-by-case basis. If you come to our catering director, they can pretty much design any menu that we want. As far as a sustainable package itself offered on the website, that is absolutely something. I talked to Susan in catering yesterday that is absolutely something we could look into including down the road.
All right, awesome. And then Angie, I believe you asked a question during the presentation if you want to ask that again.
Yeah, this was just, I was really excited about the work that Marina was talking about with the labeling and mentioning that it was going to happen online. I'm wondering if there's a way that we could communicate that information while people are in person. So as students are making choices, say if they're in Nielsen and they've, got 4 choices, is there some way that they could know in the moment the relative impact from a carbon perspective?
Yeah, that's a great comment. At this time, we do not label the food items. They'll have a title next to them, but they won't have the information like the nutrition information, any kind of like label next to it. That is all housed on the online website. So what UCLA did that was interesting is they actually had posters and other signage during that time they were conducting the study to educate students. And we could even have like QR codes that bring them to that website so they can directly see which things are being coded as a more, environmentally friendly, which ones are the green icons, and choosing those over maybe the, orange or red icons. So I think there's a way to marry those ideas. I'm not sure if we could put all of the labeling out everywhere. Usually that hasn't worked in the past for us, but I think we could maybe bridge that gap by maybe having the signs with the QR codes linking to the website and the menu that they can then see that information. But that's a really great suggestion.
All right, thank you. So thank you to those of you who asked your questions. We are reaching the end of the hour soon, and to wrap up, I would like to ask one last question. How can the Rutgers community support the work of your climate action group?
I think I touched a little bit, the practices that we have in place, in the dining halls could make the choices that would be green when you come into the dining halls. Eat in the dining halls more often. Use our reusable containers. We are always looking, for new ideas. So I guess, reach out if you come up with, a question, or if anyone has questions, reach out, and we'll be, no ideas, a bad one, and any ideas will let us, rethink maybe what we're doing and what could be possible.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So thank you so much to our speakers, Tom and Marina, for taking the time to share more about their work on sustainable dining. And thank you all for joining us today. If you are interested in learning more about climate action at Rutgers, we encourage you to subscribe to our newsletter, follow us on social media, and join us next month for a webinar on dining and food services in New Brunswick. We will share additional details soon. If you have any additional questions or ideas, please feel free to follow up directly with our office at climateaction@rutgers.edu. And so thank you all for coming today, and I hope that you all have an amazing spring break.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you have one more minute to stay on, I think there's one more question in the chat that came in as we were wrapping up
Sure.
Yeah,
for Art.
the question is, who does the food catering for meetings? CINJ, for example, and could this be incorporated into the program?
That I'm not sure. I can find out.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
Awesome.
Right.
Thank you all so much, and have a great spring break, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.